Is this thing on?
Yeah, the red light is blinking. I think we're good to go.
I'm Agatha F. Lively, reporting to you on my grandpa's old tape recorder, all the way from my family farm in Green Valley, Alberta. There's a mystery that needs solving, and me and my sidekick Joe are on the case.
Hey, I'm not your sidekick. We're co-detectives. Joe Cooper, reporting for duty.
Fine. Me and my co-detective Joe are on the case. Here's the scoop so far. It was 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I was out in the chicken coop. I have a deal going with my parents. If I go out and collect the eggs nice and early, I get to watch cartoons while I eat breakfast. I groan and grumble about it every Saturday. Don't they know I have to get up early for school the whole week? 4th grade is no joke. But secretly, I like being out in the crisp morning air. It's always pretty quiet here in Green Valley, but the mornings are especially peaceful. Anyway, this morning was like any other. I gathered the eggs from the hens and I brought them back to the house. There were tons of eggs. We definitely have enough to sell at the fair this afternoon. We mostly keep the chickens for ourselves, but when we have extra eggs, we bring them to local events like farmers markets and fairs. Mostly, though, we sell our vegetables. We have a big greenhouse where we grow peppers and eggplants and cucumbers, all sorts of plants that love the heat. Anyways, I brought the eggs back to the kitchen and handed them to my mom. I was just about to turn on the TV and get to watching cartoons when I heard a shriek from the kitchen. "Agatha, what have you done to the eggs?" she yelled so loud I swore you'd be able to hear her from the house across the street. Joe?
No, I didn't know anything was going on until the doorbell woke me up. I knew something was wrong when the doorbell kept ringing over and over, so I jumped out of bed, got dressed, and ran to the door. And you told me we had a mystery to solve, and everything you loved most was at risk.
Right. My mom threatened cartoon time. Anyways, she started yelling about the eggs, and I had no clue what she was talking about. I ran to the kitchen, startled, and asked what was going on. She said she had gone to crack open an egg, and instead of the egg being runny, as it should have been, the egg was solid and stuck in its shell, hard-boiled. She grabbed another and cracked it open. It was hard-boiled too. I told her I didn't do it, but she didn't believe me. She said it wasn't a funny prank to pull, and that I wasn't allowed to watch cartoons at all this week. That's when I ran over to your house and told you what was going on. So now we're on the case, recording on a tape recorder, because everyone knows that you have to collect evidence to be a good detective.
Speaking of collecting the evidence, let's head to the chicken coop to see if we can find any.
Good idea. Hey, do you have any theories so far? I was thinking maybe the chickens just laid the eggs already hard-boiled? That's not possible, right?
Right. Chickens don't lay hard-boiled eggs. It's like thinking chocolate milk comes from brown cows. It's just not true. We should make a list of suspects, though. People who might have done it. Who might have been in the area this morning?
Well, there's Daniel, the dairy farmer. He stopped by early this morning to ask my mom something about his cows, since she's a large animal vet. Then there are next-door neighbors, the only other people who live pretty close by to us, Natalie and her son, Norbert. They're crop farmers.
Right. There's also Emily, who's the real-deal egg farmer of Green Valley. She has a way bigger coop than your family with lots of chickens. I know she lives a 20-minute drive away, but she often stops by to visit Natalie on weekend mornings.
Okay, we have our suspect list. Daniel, Natalie, and Norbert, and Emily. All right, let's head over to the chicken coop. Next time you hear from us, hopefully we'll have some evidence.
Okay, we're back. We just looked around the chicken coop and found some interesting clues. Everything looked pretty normal in the chicken coop at first glance. On the ground, there's a crumpled up flyer of the county fair happening today. One of your parents probably just dropped it accidentally. But then I noticed a muddy footprint that was way too big to be Aggie's inside the chicken coop.
Yeah, we got closer to see if there was any shoe tread patterns that would be useful, but it was pretty smeared. At first, I thought it might have been one of my parents' footprints from yesterday, but the muddy footprint was still pretty wet, and if it was from yesterday, it would have been dry already. Plus, it was the biggest footprint I have ever seen.
That means someone was in the chicken coop this morning before you. But who?
Who do we know who has big feet?
Oh my goodness, Aggie. Daniel is always talking about how he has to special order his boots since his feet are so big.
Daniel, the dairy farmer. Of course. Let's investigate his place. Maybe we'll find another clue so we can get him to confess. Then we'll get back to watching cartoons. Okay, we're back from Daniel's dairy farm. Nothing to report.
Except we almost died.
A little dramatic, but I guess in the name of good reporting, we should talk about that. Okay, So we got to Daniel's dairy farm, and I wanted to find a pair of his boots to see if they were the same size as the footprint in the chicken coop. We spotted a supply shed where I thought we might find some boots, and we started to walk along the outside of the pasture fence towards it.
Everything was fine until someone decided that it was taking too long. It would be faster if we climbed over the fence and walked across the pasture.
Yeah, I got impatient and made a bad choice. The cows look friendly, just grazing in the field. I've met a lot of cows before. I'm pretty sure dairy cows are usually pretty gentle, so I thought it would be no problem. We just cut across the field and get to the shed in no time.
I told her it was a bad idea, but you aren't supposed to go into a field with large animals unless you have permission and supervision. But Agatha was already on her way. I leaned against the gate to yell after her and accidentally knocked over a metal rake. It fell against the metal rails of the gate and made the loudest clanging noise you've ever heard.
The sound startled me, but not as much as it startled Buttercup, the dairy cow. She got frightened and ran right towards me.
I didn't know what to do. Buttercup was pretty far away, but I thought she was going to trample you. She was running towards you so fast.
It was scary. I was still pretty close by to the fence, so I ran back and started to climb over. I thought I was done for when I felt a hand grab my shirt and quickly pull me back over the fence. When I looked up, it was Farmer Daniel, and he looked furious.
Yeah, once Buttercup saw Daniel, she calmed down a bit and stopped running towards us. But even behind the fence, it was scary. She was still swinging her head and looking agitated. Daniel said that if he hadn't been there to pull you back over, things could have been a lot worse. And I believe him. He told us that on the farm, 18% of children are sent to the hospital because of injuries caused by large animals. You would have been one of them if you weren't so lucky.
Yeah, if anyone is listening to this, don't make the same mistakes I did. Always have supervision and permission before entering an area with large animals. And remember that even if large animals look calm and peaceful, they can become spooked by things like loud sounds or by approaching them in their blind spots. Even if an animal doesn't mean to hurt you, it can happen in the blink of an eye.
Right. Farmer Daniel gave us those safety tips, along with more, like always, wearing close-toed shoes and staying away from mama animals with their babies. After Daniel finished scolding us, Agatha still asked him if he'd snuck into the chicken coop to boil the eggs. It's wild that you even remembered to ask after all that.
Yeah, Daniel definitely seemed annoyed by the question, but he said no, and that he'd been way too busy with the cows lately to be pulling weird pranks. After all, it is calving season.
So that was a dead end. We have more suspects to investigate. No more climbing into large animal pastures, okay?
Deal.
Okay, I had an idea. Remember the flyer I put in my pocket?
Oh yeah, the flyer in the country fair today? We probably would be there now if it wasn't for this heinous crime.
Yes, but when I uncrumpled it...
You know, we aren't the only ones that usually sell eggs at events like that.
Aggie.
Do you think it was Emily?
Aggie!
What?
Would you listen for a second? When I uncrumpled the flyer, I noticed the egg decorating competition was circled. Here, look, it's happening right after the costume contest. Besides, Emily is on vacation. My mom is helping look after her chickens, so it can't be her.
Oh, I see. Well, you could have mentioned that Emily was out of town earlier.
I forgot, okay?
Well, in any case, that only leaves us with one suspect. Natalie and Norbert, the crop farmers.
But what does that have to do with the egg contest being circled on the flyer?
I don't know. But there's only one way to find out.
Investigate?
You got it. Major update. We were shocked. The egg boiler is actually...
No spoilers, Aggie. Start at the beginning.
Oh, right. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we walked over to neighbor's farm to investigate. It wasn't that long of a walk, but Joe complained the whole way.
I did not. I was just taking my time, making important discoveries. I was the one who noticed there were other large footprints in Natalie and Norbert's yard, just like the ones outside the chicken coop.
It sure was weird, but that's when I saw it, standing on the front porch. The most horrifying thing I've seen in my life. A clown.
Aggie was so afraid she screamed and ducked behind me. I had to tell her it was only Norbert like 3 times before she believed me.
What? Clowns are the stuff of neighbors, okay?
Uh-huh, sure. Anyway, once Agatha finally calmed down, we noticed something about Norbert's costume. Giant shoes.
That's when it all made sense. Norbert must have been up early this morning, preparing for the contest at the fair. And with his clown shoes on, his feet were huge. So at this point, we knew it was him. But we didn't know why he sabotaged my eggs.
Since we were lucky enough to catch him on his way back from the fair,
I think that depends on your definition of lucky.
We marched right up to him and demanded answers.
It was time to reveal the evidence and get a confession.
And you sure did.
He folded like a plaid shirt.
I'm not sure that's the same.
He knew he'd been caught. He admitted to sneaking over to our place and stealing our eggs so he could hard-boil them to decorate for the fair.
That explained why the egg decorating competition was circled on the flyer.
It turns out he'd spent all his allowance on his clown costume and had no money left to buy eggs. Ended up feeling so guilty for stealing ours that he decided to return the eggs to the coop after he'd already hard-boiled them and ask his mom to pick up some eggs for him to decorate instead.
Agatha gave him such a hard time for making her miss cartoon time. I think he said sorry like 18 times. He even gave Aggie his decorated egg. Turns out that even though he didn't win the costume contest,
Well, duh.
he did win at egg decorating.
All this trouble for one painted egg.
I'm sure he needed a few practice eggs. You have to admit, the egg's pretty cute. It's painted like a cow.
Looks too much like Buttercup for my liking. But all this investigating has sure made me hungry. Want to come over for dinner?
What are we having?
Hard-boiled eggs, of course.
Thanks for listening.
Join us next time for more farmland detective work.
Bye.